The Portland Trail Blazers shot the NBA by acquiring Ja Morant from the Memphis Grizzlies in exchange for Jeremy Grant and Chris Murray. On paper, adding a former All-NBA guard sounds like a franchise-changing move. Just a few years ago, Morant was one of the brightest young superstars in basketball, averaging 27 points per game, earning second-team All-NBA honors, winning the NBA's Most Improved Player award, and leading Memphis to the number 2 seed in the Western Conference. But basketball isn't played on paper. When you look beyond Morant's name value and examine Portland's roster construction, Morant's declining production, his availability, his contract, and the Trailblazers' actual weaknesses, this trade becomes one of the most confusing moves of the offseason. Perhaps the biggest question surrounding this trade is why Portland believed another point guard was necessary in the first place. Before Morant arrived, the Trailblazers already had Damian Lillard return to the organization after his stint with the Milwaukee Bucks, veteran defensive specialist Drew Holiday, rising scorer Shaedon Sharpe, and former third overall pick Scoot Henderson. Every one of those players deserves meaningful minutes. Lillard remains one of the greatest players in franchise history and still expects to have the ball in his hands late in games. Holiday continues to provide elite perimeter defense and championship experience. Sharpe has steadily developed into one of the team's most exciting young scorers, while Henderson finally began showing the improvement Portland had hoped for when it selected him near the top of the 2023 NBA draft. Now add Ja Morant to that group. There simply aren't enough minutes or enough possessions for everyone. More importantly, Portland wasn't lacking guards. They were trying to figure out which young guards deserve bigger roles. Perhaps the biggest loser in this trade is Scoot Henderson. After struggling early in his NBA career, Henderson looked like a completely different player during the second half of last season. Over that stretch, Henderson averaged roughly 16 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, and 1 steal per game, while shooting an impressive 54% from the field. Those aren't superstar numbers yet, but for a third-year guard who entered the league at just 19 years old, they're extremely encouraging. Even in Portland's first playoff appearance since 2021, Henderson flashed legitimate star potential against a San Antonio Spurs team that finished with the third best defensive rating in the NBA, led by unanimous Defensive Player of the Year Victor Wembanyama. Henderson wasn't overwhelmed immediately. Through the first 3 games of the series, Henderson averaged 23 points per game while shooting an incredible 69% from the field. His final 2 games, however, reminded everyone how inconsistent young guards can be. He was held scoreless on 0 of 7 shooting in Game 4 before managing just 5 points on 33% shooting in Game 5. But young guards often struggle in their first playoff series. Now his development becomes far more complicated with Morant demanding the basketball. Morant is also on one of the riskiest contracts in the NBA. He is owed roughly $42 million next season and about $44 million in 2027-2028, placing him financially alongside some of the league's biggest stars, such as Luka Doncic and Anthony Edwards, while making more next season than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Brunson. Normally, that's acceptable if you're receiving MVP-level production, but as the saying goes, the best ability is availability. And unfortunately, Morant hasn't been available. After playing 67, 63, and 57 games in his first 3 seasons, Morant appeared in just 9 games in 2023, 50 games in 2024, and only 20 games last season. Some absences came from injuries. Others came from league suspensions following multiple incidents involving firearms displayed on Instagram Live, resulting in suspensions of 8 games and then 25 games. When you're paying over $40 million annually, availability is expected, not optional. Even when he is healthy, Morant's scoring has steadily declined. After averaging 27 points per game in year 3, he dropped to 26, 25, 23, then finally 19 last season. This decline becomes even more concerning when compared with other stars in his age group. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is only 1 year older than Morant, has developed into one of the league's premier players. Jalen Brunson, now 29 years old, has established himself as one of basketball's best playoff performers and a legitimate MVP candidate. Luka Doncic and Anthony Edwards continue to improve while carrying championship expectations for their respective franchises. These players are all entering or currently enjoying the peak years of their careers. Morant, meanwhile, is no longer discussed in those same conversations because his availability and declining production have pushed him out of the league's elite tier. Even if Morant were to return to his previous level, another important question remains. Does he actually solve Portland's biggest problems? The Trailblazers averaged 115 points per game, ranking 17th in the NBA offensively. More concerning was their efficiency. They shot just 45% from the field, the second worst mark in the league, and only 34% from three-point range, ranking 28th. They also committed approximately 18 turnovers per game, the highest average in the NBA. Those numbers reveal exactly where Portland needs to improve. The Blazers desperately needed better shooting, improved spacing, and stronger decision-making with the basketball. Morant addresses none of those weaknesses. Morant is a career 31% three-point shooter, and last season, he hit just 23%. Meanwhile, Portland traded away Jeremy Grant, arguably their best floor spacer. Instead of improving spacing, they made it worse. Damian Lillard thrives with spacing. Denny Advia thrives attacking open lanes. Scoot Henderson is at his best getting downhill. Portland also ranked last in the NBA in turnovers. Morant doesn't solve that problem either. Throughout his career, he has averaged roughly 3 turnovers per game, despite playing just over 30 minutes a game. Adding another high-usage guard who frequently turns the ball over doesn't address one of Portland's biggest weaknesses. Portland appeared to be building its identity around defense. Trading for Drew Holiday reinforced that philosophy. Toumani Camara has become one of the league's better perimeter defenders. Donovan Clayton anchors the paint. Adding Morant changes that identity. A starting backcourt of Damian Lillard and Ja Morant projects to be one of the weakest defensive guard pairings in the NBA. Both are undersized. Neither has consistently defended at a high level. That places enormous pressure on the rest of the defense every night. This trade feels more like Portland chasing Ja Morant's name than fitting Ja Morant into a coherent basketball plan. Portland needed shooting. Morant doesn't provide it. Portland needed better ball security. Morant doesn't provide it. Portland appeared to be building around Denny Advia, Scoot Henderson, Shaedon Sharpe, and a defense-first identity. Instead, they added an expensive, injury-prone guard whose production has declined, whose availability has become increasingly unreliable, and whose skill set overlaps with several players already on the roster. Unless the Trailblazers have another major move coming, this deal is difficult to justify.